Right, hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's show. Let's see if we've got the chat in there. We do, lovely stuff. So, Matt, Andy, Rich, evening. We all right?
Evening.
Yeah.
We're all good. Lovely. Well, no more waffling. I'm getting good. I'm getting condensing the waffle more and more each show. All right, except it's getting longer again now. Right, let's check out what we've seen in the last couple of weeks. Let's get some pretty pictures up so people don't need to be looking at our mugs all the time.
I like that thought.
So first up,
I think I'm. Is it me going?
Yep, it's you first.
Tonight? Lovely. I'll just take an ill-timed sip of water then. So this was partly on to do with the topic that we've chosen for the show tonight, but also it's one of those accounts that I just love. I look forward to every single thing that comes out from it. The artist is Louise Sugden. On Twitter, I believe under that name, but I know her from Instagram under Savage Orc Guy. I think if you follow Warhammer community at all, you'll have seen a lot of her work. They often post stuff up on there, but I believe she works in some form of art design or art production. And this color palette that she's done on here, she does on her miniatures too. They're all these super bright, these super interesting, often orcs or goblins. It just looked really, really cool. And this post was when she'd had a D&D night, and during that she just casually scribbled this amazing goblin holding a frog. Wow. Or whatever it is. And I was just like, I love it. I'm massively jealous. I wish I could do things like this, like get out what's in here and put it down on paper and stuff. But I thought with tonight's topic being a lot about art, it was a nice one to show rather than just sort of pictures of her painting miniatures as well. But I would really, really suggest, regardless of what platform you're on, going and checking it out. She's got a very unique take on miniatures painting, and I certainly think she is the best proponent of that style of painting that I see. Like her Blood Bowl stuff's awesome. She's slowly working through a lot of the what's it called, underworlds, like Zarbags and Mologs mob and things like that, and just using a lot of color and painting the models more like they're a painting, if that makes sense. Like there's no attempt at realism with it. So yeah, that's my pick for this week.
It's very cool.
Her squig amp is amazing. She
of course,
the old orc
well,
band.
she?
Yeah, she sculpted a squig into an amp, which was cool as hell.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, the old goth rock band.
Yeah. You see people putting that new noise marine on little Bluetooth speakers.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's quite fun.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure she's done that model as well. Actually,
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm fairly sure she probably had a hand in convincing them to make that model.
That's cool.
So yeah, really, really cool.
So next up
We've
is
got up next. This is you, Matt.
mine. Yeah. So because of the topic today, I was flicking through all of the old art books that are sitting in the bookshelf, and I've got a lot of Jez Goodwin books, and I always loved this piece. Like, it's just such a classic Eldar just sketch. Everyone knows it. Everyone's sort of grew up with it. And yeah, hopefully we'll see some of these soon in new plastics.
Is that from the Gothic and Eldritch book?
That's from
Or is that from
the Elder
newish
sketchbook one.
Yeah, Elder sketchbook.
Yeah, because you got the whatever they call them now, the Elder and Drakari, Elder and Dark Elder, and yeah, it's just such a good book. Like, there's so many classic pieces in there, and you go, wait, this was done in like 1990, and they only released it in like 2020. It's pretty cool.
Man. Remember going to like the games days in they've been the mid to late 90s, and you'd go into you could go in the studio room, as it were, and it was just a bunch of tables that you walk around, which had at the time, like the entire studio, which was a handful of heavy metal painters, the handful of guys writing the rules, handful of guys writing the background, and that was it, kind of thing. This was before Black Library even and stuff like that. And you could just walk around and literally just have a natter, get them all to sign your program and stuff like that. I remember they'd have their sketchbooks like this just out on the tables, you know. Which, to be fair, the last time I went to Warhammer Fest, they did as well. But I particularly remember looking at this era of sketches on that book, and it was just like, this is just the coolest stuff. And then like going home or like on the coach drive or bus drive back or whatever, desperately trying to mimic it and see, failing abysmally. But
it's some of my favorite stuff that comes out of the open days, when you can get to like see the concept sketches with the new, what was it, that arc copter thing, the Mechanicus, the butterfly looking thing. He had all the sketches there on that open day, and it was just so cool to see, like, you know, huge A3 pages of all these sketches. I just wish they would release more books like that. Like, I imagine there is hundreds of thousands of pages of just cool stuff sketched out that you could put into a book, and it'd be great. Maybe one day.
It's whenever I see one of the art books come up, like on eBay or any of the trade groups, straight in there.
Yeah.
Like, there's just some stunning ones out there. But I guess it's got a limited appeal, right? You're looking at a niche of already a niche.
Yeah, I'll happily pay
to do it. That's it, right? Yeah, I know what I mean. Yeah, big time.
So next up is Rich.
It's me. Yeah. So this was my pick this week. Chris's Astra Militarum, though Imperial Guard's their real name, was my pick this week because I just think they're great. And I follow Chris on Instagram, and the amount of time and effort he puts into his Dilly Little Guardsman is just, I think it's really exemplary. Like, I know some people do spend a lot of time on miniatures, but spending a lot of time on army miniatures, I think, is always something that's really impressive. And uniformity across an army, I think, is really impressive as well. Especially something like Guard, where you need 250 of the Guardsmen to actually make a difference in on the table. So, you know, I thought it was just really nice, and it really caught my eye. Really clean, really well painted, and just a great looking army. I just saw it, I thought, you know what, that was really, really cool. That's why it was mine.
He's been clever as well, hasn't he, with army paint? Like, he's put the whole thing's very neat and tidy, but he's put the extra effort in where you look. Like that nice bit of battle damage up on the roof of the one at the back. So immediately you sort of look in there, and you don't need to cover the whole thing in it.
And I'm not a massive fan of the Taurox models myself, but the way they've been painted here is really, really nice. Just like I said, spending that extra time to make something that's not particularly points heavy in a game, or super important in a game of troop transport, looked like a really, really nice model. So that's why
yeah, big fan. There's some nice kits or conversions people have done, isn't there, where they stick wheels on the Taurox as well.
Yeah, they make them like a half track.
Yeah, I think it works really well. Oh man, I can't wait till we get a new Guard release. It's gonna be. Surely it's gonna be huge.
Meat for the grinder.
If they ever do new Imperial Guard that are new plastic kits, I will throw every other model, including the Blood Angels, in the bin, and just do that, because
this is on record now, though. But this isn't just some flippant comment in a chat.
Honestly, it's the first army I ever did, pretty much. So it's it's something that I would love if it came back.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Doesn't need a lot, man. The vehicles are fantastic, right? We just need perhaps a variety of dudes
with flashlights.
Yeah.
Nice. So next up
plasma gun's really good as well.
And then just something that's completely different, but something else that really caught my eye is my pick as well. It's a Hera model. It's called Itzel by Rodrigo. I'm a massive fan of Rodrigo's work. I love his painting style. I love how deliberate he is with his edge highlights and where his light sources are. And I just saw this model. I just thought it was amazing. It's a great model to start with, but I think the colours that he's picked as well, the way that he's used them, and I just love it. I think it's a great model. It's strange because I love looking at the bigger scale stuff, but it's quite rare that it becomes something that I would pick as my thing of the week, or something that I spend a lot of time looking over. Normally it's that's really, really cool, really like that model, and then move on to the next thing. But this, I really zoomed in a lot and was checking how he'd done certain bits. I just thought it was brilliant model.
Nice.
Yeah, really nice. The head's very cool.
It's got a bit of that Pan's Labyrinth vibe about it.
Yeah,
It's because it's Alan, so it's one of my favourite sculptors as well. So yeah, what a great combo. But yeah, Alan Carrasco sculpts are always amazing, and he's flying the flag for traditional sculpting. Still needs to happen. So yeah, pretty awesome.
Yep.
So if it's an Alan model, that means that if we were to give that model a 360,
Yes, there'll
Yeah.
be something to look at from every angle.
yeah.
Nice. And
yeah, they're my 2 picks.
last up is more Lumineth.
More else. That's slightly different to what my pick was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously mine. This chap wasn't my favorite actually. From my picks, all the new Lumineth because I love them. But what excited me about this guy is he is the right hand of Tyrion, and that means that one day we might get Tyrion, who's my second favorite fantasy character ever. So yeah, it gives hope that he might happen.
Well, who's your first favourite?
Yeah, who's your first?
King Imtwoods,
Oh,
Orion.
fair. Yeah, fair.
Orion, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's all right.
Orion and then Tyrion. Painted them multiple times. I think I painted them twice when I was about 10, and then when I was like 18. So yeah, always loved those characters. But yeah, doing Lumineth right now. So seeing 10 new kits at the weekend was like, cool. That's me.
There's a lot
That's
of
me.
L's.
That's me entertained for however long the lockdown lasts. I've got enough stuff to do.
I hadn't really looked at this one, the mount so much because I thought it was exactly the same, but they changed it so it's more like trotting along rather than like
Yes, so I got like new shiny syndrome and I was like, oh, this one's awesome. But I think after a couple days, the first one, the alternate build to this kit, I think I prefer because it's more dynamic.
it is more dynamic, yeah.
The beast is banked and it's only on 1 foot, so you don't have that base for it to balance on. And yeah, I think her pose is actually better than his. I think, but I'm obviously going to do both. But but yeah, it's nice for me to be excited about a range to do as an army because I get excited about models to paint one. But it's been quite a few years since I really wanted to paint like everything that's come out as an army. So it's nice to have that feeling, I think.
I really love these mounted characters they've started doing. Like I think this one, I think the one from the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, where they really changed it up so that the mount was quite different and looking a completely different way. So again, you could paint the two of them and have very unique models. I hope it's something we get to see. I mean, obviously the Stormcast have got a few great heroes on those, and I think it, with Age of Sigmar being this sort of very hero, good and bad heroes and villains and all of that, very over the top. I think it's nice to see the heroes that aren't the incarnation of the god and all the rest of it. Yeah, medium size, but they could still be a brilliant centerpiece if you wanted. In the army. I was saying to Andy earlier, I hope that the banner bearer that we saw for this is a sign of things to come as well. I'd love to start seeing more BSBs brought back in. Again, just because it's, and I think most of us, when we approach painting an army or collecting one, a lot of it comes from how it's going to look on the table, or more importantly, how it's probably going to look on the shelf, which is where it's going to spend the majority of its time, right? Even if we game, game regularly, right? It's still, I can out the corner of my eye, I can see my Titans walking along my windowsill, and I love it. Like, and it's because you get this lovely variation in mass and height, and I think that battle standard bearer can bring another different type, different looking sort of miniature to your army project. I think also what you kind of
feeding off what you were saying, Henry, about some of the smaller characters are just getting brilliant new models. It means that if you want to do an army project and you only want to take it to 1,000 points at its max, you can still fit some really cool characters in there, as opposed to the main character for this is so 500, 600 points. Therefore, I've pretty much got to do 2K to be able to fit it in, to have that amazing model on the table. But as you said, now that there's some brilliant models coming in that are maybe slightly smaller in points, you can actually have an incredible looking army, and it doesn't have to be huge.
Yeah, I just like that. Yeah,
it's just nice to see this variety coming into AOS now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andy, I talked over them, mate.
I agree with you, Henry, that I love I've always liked just the regular mounted heroes, because before they could probably do big, really big models, you just had like the Metal Tyrion was a normal size horse with him on, and I always loved those characters. And I like the Stormcast ones, but I don't love Stormcast.
Sure.
So now it's like, okay, this is my jam. And we get a high elf on a weird horse thing. I'm stoked. All I need now is a wood elf or a Kanothi on a stag, and then I'm a happy boy.
Yeah. I mean, you're stretching that one for horse, let's be honest. I mean,
what is it? What are we saying? Or what do we say it was? Rick, we had a name for it.
Oh, the deer.
Oh
God,
is it an elk?
Elk, yeah, kind of like an elk. It's a bit like a Mononoke style elk, but with smaller horns. It's an elk cow. There you go.
Okay.
It's got like a
kelk. It's a kelk. Cow elk.
It's got like a sphinx kind of style neck and chest, and then like a face of a cow.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
It says something when it's probably only about the 5th or 6th weirdest critter in that army.
It's not number one.
We haven't spoken about kangaroos yet.
Exactly.
I don't know. Have you seen some kangaroos? You want to meet some of them in Australia.
Yeah.
Built like bricks. And
it was a great weekend for me, seeing all this new stuff. So that was.
And I think that's it. We're on to
good stuff. We're on to meme of the week. So I guess this is becoming a thing now, I guess. And was it Andy? Was it you this week, bud, who spotted this one?
Yeah.
Go on then, bring her up. Yeah, it's strong. I was saying before the show went live, I've had this sent by quite a few different people to me over the last 24 hours. So whoever created this one, good job. You've
so perfect.
You've done it. Yeah, you've done a good one.
It's just so true.
It's just what I noticed in that recent the recent YouTube tutorial, the Lumineth one.
Yeah.
That you do eyes first, specifically to avoid getting too much every. But I mean, that's not going to avoid not putting the pupils look in the same direction, is it? Which we still see a lot of, right?
But you can correct them. You can have more attempts if you do it first.
Yeah.
Did you also notice in that video, like my filming one was terrible, and then it was like it was on the eyelid. I think it wasn't even like looking the wrong way. It was on the eyelid.
It's just because I think I can't remember. I'd done a few bare head ones recently. I was like, look, for gaming armies, like stop worrying about putting the whites in and all the rest of it. Just paint it black. It's absolutely fine. It looks fine.
Nope.
And then I was like, but I quite like putting the whites in, like when I do it. I think especially if you've only got a few like Marines with their helmets off or whatever, like just put the time in. And I'm watching your video and I'm going, yeah, I'm glad he's put the white in because I like that. I like that. And I was like, wonder how people will react. And then you decided to put the highlight dot in the pupil. And it was at that point I was like, it's not going to happen, is it? This is not. This is
well, on a tabletop mini
across an army, yeah. You know,
it's happening, mate. You just got to do all the white dots in one session. So I'm like, right, tonight I'm doing all those reflections. I'll send you a picture.
That would just result in me smashing all the minis that I painted that evening.
Okay, yeah, I love it.
Everyone in my army gets a helmet. No one's barehead.
Yeah, that's the other.
Safety first. Safety first. You would not wear a helmet. I'm sorry.
I do like the black eyes for like demons and vamps, and when I did Sigvold, I thought I want to do the eyes black, and I really felt like it was a cop out. but when I finished it, it kind of made it because it's such a pretty mini. And then he just had black eyes with a red, and I was like, yeah, that was a good call. And I think when those new vamps come out that we're all excited for, that'll be cool because you can do some red eyes or like different colored ones. And I think that's fun. Yeah, it's cool.
Black eyes, mate. If it's got black eyes and they're gloss, or if it's got anything black gloss like lens, orb, eyeball, whatever, it gets a like from me.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. It's just I just love it. It photographs pretty poorly, but I love it. I absolutely love it when people use like gloss black and stuff for armies. It's like that argument of should you put any gloss varnish on your lenses? Because if you look at like a lot of the scale modeling guys, they'll often gloss their lenses and things like that. And again, I don't think it looks great in a photo, but I really like it when I've got the model in my hand.
Then you shouldn't highlight it then, though.
Exactly. One color, and So I chose to do that on all the Titans. Like, just, it's a lot. Even though it's a simpler process, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be a legit one.
That suits the Titans way more though, because like when you put in like a little line highlight on a marine eye, it works. But like that scale, it feels wrong to do that highlight. It would just be this big plain bit of glass. So I think that's totally the right choice, for the better choice for the that figure. Even though it's easier, sometimes the easier choice is actually better, right?
Yeah, that's it, right?
That's a different show.
It is, yeah. I'll jot that one down. Easy. Yeah. There we go. Cool. Right. So, meme of the week. Love it. I can't wait to see what our next one would be. By all means, tag us in them if you see them.
What's the cult memes?
Just tag it paint cultists. It's all right. There's been tons of random crap tag paint cultist anyway, so a couple of memes won't make a lot of difference.
Cool.
Don't worry about it. Cool. Right. So I think we're ready to move on to the main topic of tonight's show, which is a segment that Andy's going to lead us off on, and it's to do with this idea of traditional art and artists, the influence that they have, not just on the design of miniatures, so from a concept point of view, but also the influence we're seeing them have on miniatures painters, whether that's competition level or across an army, a theme, that sort of thing. Take it away, Andy.
So I'm not sure how to say it in a succinct way, but I think that 2D art is integral to miniatures and all hobbyists, and I definitely appreciate it probably impacts different hobbyists in different ways. Some people might be obsessed with the art and recreating it and get really into the 2D art and using techniques from that. Other people might just play tabletop games and they barely want to paint their models. But I do think that 2D art probably has an impact on every hobbyist in some way. And it's just a really cool thing to talk about. I love looking at the art and like trying to either learn from it or copy it in some way and stuff like that. And it's something that loads of other painters have done too. So I thought it'd be a nice thing to just run through ways that 2D art affects the miniature world. And one of the coolest things is probably most people watching like Games Workshop. They've at least bought Games Workshop. And it's really nice to see when like stuff like the Jez Goodwin sketch that Matt showed impacts the miniatures we see today, and there's art is so integral to Games Workshop. So I thought we'd start looking at some Games Workshop concepts or sketches that have actually become miniatures. So if we have a look at that first one, that would be cool. And this is super new. So this is what we're talking about really. So does anyone roughly know the date of the Mark Gibbons artwork?
It's been 95.
Yeah, very early 90s.
And was Mephiston a 2020 miniature?
No.
2019.
Yeah, we were doing a class at Bad Moon Cafe in London.
Oh, yeah. But 24 years apart, right? Mm-hmm. From the art being made and then Games Workshop turn it into a miniature. And I think all of us probably knew this Mark Gibbons art as soon as we got into the hobby. I know Matt's got Angels of Death.
It's Angels of Death, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got Angels of Death, Henry?
Mate, I've got
Like
not
right
even
now?
got that. I'll do you one better. I've got some Angels of Death artwork on a T-shirt.
There you go.
Strong.
So fuck it. I'm going to tangent off on this one. Sorry, Andy. I'm jumping in. Sorry,
Take
mate.
it.
So when I was about, I don't know, 12 or so, something like that, Angels of Death come out. It's the greatest codex that's ever been made. Blood Angels and Dark Angels, just full of Mark Gibbons artwork. And Wayne England artwork is just immense. And for the 100th store opening, they did, I want to say it was Sergeant Centurious, maybe, that Legion of the Damned model.
Really?
With his skull. I'm pretty sure that was the 100th store opening thing. So I lived in this little town. We only just got a Games Workshop recently. So my nan, I sent her off to Wolverhampton Games Workshop for me. And like a good grandma, she went in and then she got me this T-shirt as well, which has got Mark Gibbons' Asmodee artwork.
Oh, that is great.
Right?
That is
And,
classic.
I would wear the shit out of this, which obviously got me a lot of action at the roller disco on a Saturday at Leisure Centre and whatnot. Did a good job of protecting my virginity for quite some time. And obviously at some point the T-shirt got lost in the mist of time. And my old club in London, we've got a hate club. We've got a trading page on there. And just before Christmas, someone stuck up, I've got these old GW T-shirts for sale. Does anybody does anybody want them? Not for sale. Does anyone want them? And I saw it and I was like, oh my God. So that was it. Nostalgia. I've got it again. It's going to go up on the wall in the office when it's been redone. But yeah, that's how important that artwork, Mark Gibbons artwork from that book is, personally.
Well, if you want a piece of Mark Gibbons artwork, he does sell a lot of his
doesn't he? Yeah.
If you got the bank for it, you can pick one up.
Has he sold this piece?
I don't know if he sold this piece, but he recently sold the Orion piece.
He did,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He the original sketch and the
OG.
drawing, the actual one. Yeah.
Should have got that, shouldn't I? Really?
He gets them back from GW after X amount of years or whatever. That's their contracts, I think.
Oh, right.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, if you can afford it and pay the import tax from America, you can have it.
All right, then.
But sorry about that, bud. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
If you could own a piece of Games Workshop art, what would it be? If you could have the original,
This piece.
you'd have this.
Yeah. I can't afford it, but I'd have it.
Oh, that's a really good question.
Should have prepared you for that. Should we
Yeah,
come back
you
to that
should.
later?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. We'll come back to that at the end of the show. And then guys in the chat as well, stick down anything you've thought of.
Stick down if you could own any workshop original.
Any piece of work.
I know mine.
Original.
I've thought of mine.
We're gonna have to sit on it, Rich.
Um,
Otherwise, we'll never get this segment finished.
Should we do the next example?
Yeah.
That was a great tangent. I loved it.
Fabulous, Bill.
And another one. But yeah, it's so cool that old artworks we probably all know and love become miniatures. So it's not only do we get a new version of a miniature that we love, but if it's based off of an original art, that's just so cool. And I hope they do it for more characters that they haven't done yet, like Azrael and a Phoenix Lord. Just give me that. We all love these characters, and those arts are probably ingrained in us more than we think. That's what I was trying to say about maybe you don't think much about the art, but actually it's probably in your head or influences you more than you think. If there was a codex you loved, you've got that front cover ingrained in your mind.
Yeah.
That Angels of Death chaplain. Let's go. That is cool.
I think also for Games Workshop as a company as a whole, the bigger and bigger they get, I really like the fact that they're doing the throwbacks to the artwork that influenced new minis. It's a way for them to stay true to the original ideas that created the company that's doing so well now. And I think it's also for people like us who've been around in the hobby for a fair old while now. You get that nostalgia kick, like when you remember when you looked at the artwork on covers, like you said, for the first time.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
I think it's awesome that they are still using that to influence the models that they're releasing today to people who wouldn't necessarily know them because maybe they were too young, which will then, they might then look at the artwork and go, wow, what's that artwork from? And then that opens up all the artwork that there's been from when day dot to now, so that they've got access to all of that as well. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's great. And obviously these guys are professional sculptors and they have this IP at their disposal, so they can just, you know, pull this from the archives and just do it. And obviously we already had a Fabius Bile model. I was trying so hard not to say Fabulous Bill then. I can't remember the last time I called him Fabius Bile. But there's stuff we don't have a picture of, like Jez Goodwin's Necron sketch that just became a model, and it wasn't one before, you know. So it's like, and Forge World seemed to do it quite a bit with the Heresy stuff. There was stuff that had never been a model, and it was a really old sketch in it, and it comes to life, and that's really cool. So there might be some piece of art you loved from the 90s, and it could become a model. That's kind of cool, right?
But you're right saying that influence it has on the whole, that subconscious influence it has, not just on that direct influence it has on the sculptors and stuff, but that subconscious influence it has on us as fans. You know, and I think we agreed, you know, our little miniatures range is obviously absolutely minute compared to what someone like Games Workshop's producing, but we knew the importance that we felt artwork gave to a miniatures range, the need for 2D artwork to accompany miniatures, to as a way for you to get the feeling that you have about this world you've created and these characters you've created. The more ways you can get that across to people, the better, right?
Yeah.
And that's not just in a painted model. It's using, you know, this artwork. And we're so lucky now as well with digital art, like the fact that we're just getting way more art than we used to, because it's that much more forgiving for the artists to use it, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think with the GW stuff, and obviously, you know, they're really combing back into those archives and pulling out really old stuff that it hasn't been seen in decades, and
So
making
cool.
a new model from it. I remember I was watching one of their podcasts, and they had I think in the last 3 or 4 years or something, they hired an archivist to manage all of this IP. And
good guy, really good guy.
I'm so jealous of that job. I can't explain, but
that's basically what you've been doing, isn't it?
yeah, it's in a different way, but he's basically just gone through and, you know, he's found all the originals that were, you know, under boxes of piles out in the back room somewhere, and they're properly archiving them, documenting them, having them available to pull out. And I think that's great, because I think a lot of stuff probably over the years has gone walkabouts. Someone's put it under their arm and it's gone out the door at some point. But yeah, having it all sort of available now is great. Love it.
I think it helps your imagination as well, because, like, let's face it, models in the 90s weren't perfect sculpts. They were cool and they were characterful, but like when you looked at the art in like Angels of Death and you saw all that, they weren't on goblin green bases with a flocked mat on a kitchen table. You were like, oh, that's the world, okay. And then it helps you imagine it.
That is a really interesting point. I hadn't considered that, because even something like Mark Gibbons' artwork, which isn't necessarily this particularly messy, expressive, grimdark style that you see from, I don't know, Paul Dainton's stuff or Karl Kopinski or Adrian Smith's, that really busy sort of incredible battle scenes and gritty stuff. His is, I don't mean cartoony detrimentally. I really don't mean that. But they are, you know, caricatures or whatever you want to say.
It's more graphic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is more, exactly. It's more graphic. But they've, as you've said, it's very grimdark still. You look through the old original Necromunda books. Again, it's full of Mark Gibbons stuff, like in this sort of smoky background. You know, the main hero character, but it's all done in that real heavy shading, high contrast. And yeah, exactly as you said, it gives it grimdark at a time when things were walking around on goblin green sand in the middle of a refinery made out of a Pringles tin and a can of Coke or whatever.
It was the law.
Exactly.
Had to have goblin green bases.
Yeah.
It's cool now that the miniatures design and the ability to produce miniatures has actually caught up with the artwork. So like Andy said back in the day, those miniatures were like the height of what you could produce at the time, but they didn't show that it wasn't the same as the artwork, or didn't have that level of detail or that level of movement, etc. Whereas this does, and I think it's really cool now that they have the ability to do it, that they're going back and redoing it.
I wonder if that ever, because as I said earlier, it was such a small team back in the day. I wonder if it did influence the artwork, if they were told. And for those people who don't know what we're going on about, with the old models, when they were cast in lead and then white metal and whatnot, the method of casting and whatnot meant that you often really only had sort of two planes to play with, which is why all your characters are like.
Yeah.
And if you turn them on the side, they disappear behind a lamppost, kind of thing. I wonder if they made a focus on these drawings as well, making them slightly more static heroic poses, if that makes sense. So the classic
2D,
GW, arm out to the side, shouting kind of thing, or as we know now, the foot on a rock pointing,
tactical rock.
Tactical best pose.
Whereas I can think of artwork we see nowadays, which, like, if you think of the front cover of the Necromunda box now, it's got looking over their shoulders like this, hid up against a wall. You
because
can see
they can do it.
Because it's no longer, it doesn't take away from anything. I wonder if that ever had
it probably was. I mean, in the early 90s, it was all white metal casting. It was 2 parts silicone molds that you'd spin up and then you pour your white metal in. So you were very limited on your staticness to be able to actually do much. But now plastic technology is just incredible what you can produce out of a injection mold.
Adam in the chat has just mentioned GW did it again this weekend. We saw that Stormcast character Gardas from the front cover of that book doing the awesome what's it called?
Superhero
landing. Yeah.
And
that's gosh, yeah, probably should have had that picture. Thanks for that, Adam. It was a good one.
Cool.
Yeah, so I guess that segues quite nicely actually, because we talked about what they were capable of and what they could do in the day back in the day. And I think the cool thing is now, or something that people challenge themselves to do, is actually copy artwork properly, and they might do it for a painting competition such as Golden Demon, or they might team up. What you see a lot of at the shows such as Crystal Brush, probably most famously, is you see teams of sculptors and painters, and they sculpt a one-off piece, and a lot of the time it's based off some artwork. So you've got like Rubens' Space Wolf Crystal Brush piece, things like that. That was recent. And so in the next segment, we want to look at some hobbyists and how they've been influenced by artwork. And we're going to put the artwork side by side like this and have a look at what they do. So let's have a look at the first one. So we've seen this one before because it was in our top 10 of the year. So this is Albert, and it's off of a Paul Bonner artwork, and he hired a sculptor to copy this artwork. And I think this reinforces exactly what we just said, is that now with modern sculpting, you can really copy stuff absolutely perfectly. And Albert's one of the best painters in the world, but the sculpt that he hired someone to do is just spot on, right? And the colors aren't very similar actually, because it's Albert's style. But yeah, this is just the definition of how artwork can influence miniatures, and that could be a commercial figure, couldn't it, that you could buy?
Yeah, Paul Bonner's he's done a fair bit of GW stuff over the years. I think someone mentioned it in the chat actually as one of their picks. James saying he loves any of Paul Bonner's artwork with him do his Space War stuff.
Yeah.
He's really worth a follow on social media. He's very active, and he often posts up old pictures of his, and he'll sort of chat about if he can remember painting it or drawing it. He'll chat about sort of what he did at the time. Occasionally show you some little sneak peeks as well. But it's very interesting, isn't it, to when you have an artist that has such a distinctive style. You know, how do you are you going to be able to turn that into a miniature?
That's true.
You know, we've seen that here years, probably 15, 20 years ago now. There was a range of models called the Femme Militants? It's something. I was out of the hobby at the time, but it was a sort of 54 or slightly smaller scale set of models based off John Blanche concept art that would never have really made it to mainstream GW production, but they did a small run of these larger figures. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, this is someone who's an artist. He's not drawn this or painted this with a view to it being turned into a model, right?
Yeah, not designed. Yeah.
So it must be interesting as a sculptor how you approach that, because that sculptor's got nothing else to work with, has he?
No.
You know, when we design miniatures, when we're designing miniatures, our sculptors are able to speak to the concept artist and stuff. There's always that communication, but you've literally got a piece of 2D artwork here. How can I turn this into a miniature that is an accurate facsimile of that original artwork?
It's cool, isn't it?
It's very cool.
Yeah. Every person involved just done a great job, really. It's nice to see that interaction, I think. And I think Paul Bonner's a really important person for fantasy art. When we're talking about art probably impacts hobbyists even on a subconscious level, or maybe more than they think. They've probably got a favorite piece of art or a favorite artist, but they don't know his name. Like, you know, they might have seen all the Mark Gibbons art and love it, but they don't actually know it's Mark Gibbons or whatever. Probably there's probably some art you go, oh, that's my favorite bit of art, even if you think you don't actually care about it. And Paul Bonner's one of those where everyone's probably seen one, and if they like fantasy, they're probably going to like Paul Bonner art. I think that's really nice. So I think we should do the next one. We talked quite a lot about that one before. So straight into another Paul Bonner, and I love this art. And this was one of the first things where I kind of couldn't believe how well it had been turned into a miniature. Me and Rich actually went to Monty Sansovino's show. I think it was 2015, which is our first. I think so.
Yeah, it's roughly when we first met. You remember talking about this, yeah?
I think this is I think this was our first trip to Monty Sansovino, and that was a crazy show to be exposed to. And then this was just plonked on the shelf. And Rich actually knows Paul Bonner better than me, so Rich said this is the front cover of the Paul Bonner art book, and it was like, holy wow, this is amazing. And painted by Mark Masclands, who we've talked about before, and it's really cool to see that translation. And it's surprising how good it is as a miniature, actually. Like, you look at that scene and you think, there's a massive Minotaur, there's loads of stuff behind, you can't sculpt all that. And there it is. So yeah, just epic. And it looks that good in real life as well, I think.
I mean, it's testament to it that, like you said, when we saw it for the first time, I knew exactly what it was the minute I saw it.
Yeah.
I could literally just go, that's the Paul Bonner book cover. And it blew my mind, because that was the first time that I'd really thought about how miniatures could do that, or how you could create, because before the miniatures, I was always into fancy artwork and books and that kind of thing. So seeing then or making the link between the two, that you can actually recreate the scenes that you imagine in your head or that you see on a page into like a miniature form, just absolutely blew my mind. And also the quality of the paint job wasn't bad either.
It's just both done so expertly, isn't it? Because you could you could have a bash at like sculpting it a bit and doing an okay paint job, but it's like the sculpt is spot on and the painting is spot on, and it's just ticks a lot of crazy boxes. And I think that's what's really cool to see, is like a best of show piece and things like that. But an interesting question is, you know, is it more skillful to come up with something original, or is it awesome to see art that you love get turned into something so
well, yeah, precisely. That's what I was sort of trying to get at with that last one of his as well, is it, because I suppose in my mind I was like, well, if you're literally copying or sculpting a piece of artwork, you know, detail for detail, that initially I thought to myself, well, that's probably a hell of a lot easier than someone giving you a concept and telling you can do your own thing. But actually, if it's a piece of artwork that is as important as pieces like this from an artist that is so important to our genre, it must be bloody scary.
Yeah.
Because if sorry, I don't know this who sculpted this, but was it right? If he'd got it wrong, like that's bad, right? That's enough to derail someone's sculpting journey, right? Because if you become known as the person that butchered this piece of it's, you know, we see it occasionally with Games Workshop, probably because that's the one we're most exposed to as a community. There will be the odd model that comes out based off artwork that people generally agree is a bit of a miss, and it must feel pretty shitty.
I'd imagine it's, you know, I'd imagine like with Paul Bonner and artists that really flesh out their pieces, you know, his stuff is fully finished. There's no concept or leeway you can sort of leverage on, whereas more of a concept art you can leverage a bit of creativity because it's not really fleshed out fully. I'd imagine Paul Bonner's style art is probably harder to really make a sculpt from. Yeah, it's, although like you don't have to really think about it, all the details are there, but you have to nail it.
Yeah, that's it, right? Yeah, you've got to nail it. It's it's brilliant. Like these last two models are, again, you've got two stunning pieces of fantasy artwork, famous pieces of fantasy artwork, and the models are as good as, you know, I mean, it helps that two of the best miniatures painters you know, in the world have done them, obviously, but it's still it's very exciting. It's very exciting. Adam's just asked a question in the chat: is how would you technically describe the lighting in that? Is it, do you call it soft or muted? Is there a proper name for that style?
There's not like a specific name for it, but it is quite a soft lighting. You look in the Paul Bonner one and you get the feeling of it's a little bit of sunlight and there's a lot of shadows by all the things around it, right? So it's just not a really strong lighting. But yeah, I would just say it's got a soft light, and Mark's done that really well. Typically in miniatures at the moment, everyone goes for crazy strong lighting, right? So you've got like bright super mega light from one side and then pink from the bottom, but this is gentle, and again that's something you can learn from 2D art, and it's something that I always look at, is like, because I'm trying to learn how to light things, and it can teach you like, how much contrast you need to do. So, you know, when you're looking at the shoulder of the Minotaur in the Paul Bonner art, you can see it's, you know, there's got a grey shadow, a bit of orange, and how bright he goes. And you can kind of teach yourself how to do lighting by looking at 2D art, because that's what we're doing if we take on that style, basically. So, yeah, you can learn, well, how much contrast do the 2D eyes do? And then you can translate that. So, yeah, I don't think it's anything specific, but yeah, it's a nice soft light, and it's just illuminating the face of the Minotaur, isn't it? Like the legs all in shadow and stuff. So it brings that face to the forefront. And then you've got the lovely yellow on the rocks, which is awesome.
It's very cool.
And Mark's kind of done that as well, hasn't he? He's got all that yellow on the rock in the door, and then the rock at the bottom is very dull. So, but yeah, going back to what I said before, I just wanted to say that I think in conclusion that it's probably equally as impressive. If you're copying from art and doing such a perfect job as an original idea and concept. So yeah, it's an interesting debate that I think we should save for a podcast we've got planned, actually. So should we do the next one?
Yeah.
Sweet. And so now we're kind of back to, we did GW taking old art and making sculptures, and then we've looked at other painters using other artists, not in the Games Workshop world. And now we can look at, well, what have guys done with Games Workshop art for their own projects? And this is by Rafa Volomir, and it was a classic Golden Demon entry. I can't actually remember what it did in GD, but Matt, you should know. I'm going to put you on the spot.
I think it. Yeah, I can't remember.
Early 2000s.
Yeah.
Early 2000s.
I've got it. I've got it in my index here, but I cannot remember off the top of my head. You put me on the spot there. I feel bad now. It was
I'm testing you every week.
No, I can't remember. I have to find it.
But it's I think on his blog volomir.com he still has every step of creating this, and it's bonkers the lengths he went to, because this was a time where the marine kit was pretty old and you had to do a lot of work if you wanted a different pose.
2009.
Nice.
I just jumped on the blog, so I'll put the link in the description, guys, but it's volomir.com. It's a really fantastic hobby blog if you like that sort of traditional way of blogging about miniatures and things. And yeah, 2009 he started. It's 7 months of work.
It was a silver. There we go.
Silver. Oh,
Yeah.
Does that not? Oh my days.
God, only for a silver.
I
It's the 2010 Golden Demon.
I was quite a new hobbyist when I saw this, so it's like I always go back to that feeling of like, how the bloody hell do you do that? And
mind blown, sort of.
Well, a lot of the Oops, sorry.
That's all right. You go for it.
So I was going to say a lot of the pretty much everything on there is custom sculpt. Which is insanity. He sculpted it, then casted. All the shoulder pads are cast.
Cast nearly all of it. Yeah.
Which is mad.
Yeah.
I think as a fan of Games Workshop, right, that you're going to know these arts when people do them. So like turning up to GD, if you see something that is a classic, you go, that's that wicked art. And that's what I'm talking about, that subconscious kind of influence again, you know.
You could argue that this piece of art or this story that the art is showing is arguably the most famous Warhammer 40,000 thing.
Is it?
So off the front cover of the second edition, or the first edition, and then the second edition book, you have this last stand of the Imperial Fists.
That was the Rogue Trader one, right?
Yeah. So that's the Imperial Fists fighting these orcs, and I might get this slightly wrong in slightly order. So, and then from that piece of art, we've seen that. I don't remember, quite a few years ago, we got a miniature, didn't we?
The metal one, yeah.
Yeah, of the beaky marine with the pulling orc's head off in his fist and all the rest of it, and probably pointing, which again influenced another miniature further down the line. I think, if I'm right, this artwork would have been from the early noughties when they moved into the next edition of 40k. I dropped out around here, and I think this is probably, this piece of 2D artwork is an homage to that original piece of 2D artwork. I'm fairly sure it's like a character, the dude with the fist is that Cortez character, I think, which is going back to that original site of that massacre with the orcs and taking them on again. And now we've got this another amazing diorama that someone's based it off. And I would love to see that continue to be a thing. Yeah. I'd love to see a piece of Primaris artwork that is the fists you know, in a modern take of this diorama, as it were.
That'd be
I
very
think
cool.
it's pretty cool, you know, like it's and I don't, neither of those pieces of art, this one nor the original one, for me anyway, are particularly, like, I'm not like crazy about them or anything like that.
They're in your mind.
Going back to what you said earlier, they have had that influence, and it's that I think that thing that so many of us love about why we don't just paint miniatures, why we choose a universe to paint them in. You've got that heroic last stand thing, haven't you? This, you know, Marines, the brave few Marines against overwhelming odds and all the rest of it. It's just cool, man. And then we get awesome dioramas like this one. Gareth Nicholas did that great Blood Angels one, didn't he? That's based off a similar idea. Of artwork, that sort of clustered together group of Marines.
Yeah,
it's just so iconic. The last stand, any sort of Marine group doing a last stand, is really cool. If I might be wrong, but I'm going to take a stab at it. The original version of this, I think there was, if you look to like the left in the corner of the artwork, there is like missiles that are coming in, so that you do actually know that it is actually the last stand, and it is very imminent that it's all over. And I can always remember that popped up once, and I saw it, and someone commented on it, and it just blew. I was like, "Oh, that's so cool that it is genuinely, like, momentarily all over."
Well, they've done a whole like 4x4. No, it's probably not 4x4, 2x2 maybe diorama of that in Weimar World in the museum. That original piece of art. So again, that's all of that spawned from that piece of artwork.
Yeah,
you know, that conversation we're now having 30 years later or whatever it is. It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's nice. And I don't know, it makes me want to do Crimson Fist looking at that art.
we get quite a lot of requests, actually. They're pretty high up the next one to do for YouTube.
All right.
So let's
get
one on.
It's such a classic style, though, the Crimson Fist. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
It's one of those successor chapters that everyone wants to be.
But it was the main one, wasn't it? Because it was.
Yeah, they were the poster boys. Yeah,
they were the Ultramarines back in the day.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, the 3rd edition Codex, and that's got to be one of the few or last times that it wasn't Ultras on the Marines front, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got it back there.
Can you imagine if they did a Primaris version of Pedro Cantor? Is it Pedro Cantor the chapter master?
Yeah.
Yes,
that'd be awesome.
I think everyone's getting big at some point.
Everyone gets biggified.
Yeah, juicing on the steroids.
Yeah, more steroids. Yeah,
Gains. Everyone's been in the gym.
But yeah, it's really worth, if you've got like a bit of time on a lunch break or whatever, go and read Volomir's blog about creating this, and it will probably complement this show very, very well, because he talks a lot about exactly what we're discussing, this influence of art, and he's taken it to that a more extreme length than many of us ever will, and it ended up resulting in something as memorable as that, which is rad.
And we're not talking about the first place one. I don't know what came first.
Rafa Garcia thingy. He won with his. He had the Ultramarine on the.
Typical.
Being suited up. It was his first ever GD entered.
That's Ruben.
Ruben. Sorry. And the first Golden Demon he entered, and he came in with a Slayer sword. And then he entered his second one ever, second Slayer sword, and he hasn't done one since.
Casual.
2 entries, 2 swords. Go on, son.
I'd probably do the same thing. Just retire. Done it, mate. Yeah. Completed it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely read Volmir's blog. It is amazing.
Nice.
Cool. So next slide.
Speaking of Space Marine last stands.
Yeah. So this isn't meant to be too self-serving, but I love the artwork, and it influences my stuff all the time. So I thought it'd be cool to rattle through some bits that I've kind of done. And this is pretty much exactly what Volomir did, but a bit of a smaller scale. To be fair, there's only 3 Marines in the art, so I actually, I added extra. So it seems a bit of a cop out after looking at Volomir straight after. But yeah, it's nowhere near copied to an extreme like Volomir's, but it's just that influence, and it's obviously Primaris, not regular Marines. But I think something that I no way would have done if I hadn't seen this art was have the really long purity seals with nails through them, and then a skull with a nail through it with a purity seal under it. And I love doing that. That's super fun, and that's all from the art. And I wanted to do this for a while. And actually, probably the navy blue center for the banner. There's no way I would have done that for Blood Angels, and it works. But I love that navy blue in the middle of the banner. It's just super cool. In some ways, I wish I would have just replicated the art exactly, because I love how high he's holding that sword, but I don't quite have the sculpting skills to make a Marine in that position. But yeah, it's pretty awesome.
No, it's cool, man. This is one of the reasons I wanted us to do this topic for this show. It's something I found that you've talked to me about a lot more over the last maybe 2 years now, certainly the last 18 months, 2 years. And I feel like this was the piece that you really took that next step of, it's not just a piece of art you've seen and you've thought about while you were working on something. It's a piece of art you've seen, and it is the number one influence and direct influence. The photo is going to be up on the wall type thing for a project. And I feel like you've done that on quite a few projects since.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see, and I will link in the description as well. You did a little article about this, didn't you, back when it came out?
Yeah.
Talking about it. But it's the navy blue thing's interesting. Is it Kevin Chin, maybe, the artwork?
Not sure.
I'm trying to think. The only reason I'm saying that is I think he often does that weird swirling demon thing.
Oh yeah, at the
So
top.
I think maybe it's him. Not sure. We ought to check really, but they're not always great about putting who's painted what anymore.
Yeah.
But it's Last Stands, man. It's too
exactly
cool.
Yeah, it's just cool, isn't it? And but also I thought that this was like, it's not a copy but it's an influence, and that's again talking about you can use the art at different levels. So like, it's a Space Marine Last Stand, Volomir's is a perfect replica, and then this is like just an influence and using the brand new miniatures, and that's cool, and that's something that I just love, is getting ideas from stuff. Even the tone of the red on those Marines I particularly love, because it's a proper crimson, and most of it is really dark. It's not like that classic flat orange from Second Ed, is it? It's all really dark, apart from that little line of light on the arms and stuff. So I really like that. It's cool.
When you were doing this, because obviously this was in preparation for trying to replicate your GD win with your original Blood Angels squad, did you specifically search out for a piece of artwork to be inspired to do the squad by, or did it just happen upon it? Or
no, it was the other way. It was the art first. So I just love Blood Angels, always going to be one of my favorite things, and this is probably my favorite Blood Angel art, I guess, of a group of normal Marines, probably.
Does it always come that way around? Do you always find the artwork first, then create the miniatures to base it on? Or do you think, like, right, I love Lumineth, I want to do something for a GD or a competition or whatever, and then you start flicking through the books and find the art? Is there a set way, or does it kind of do a bit of both?
I think like this, I saw it, and you just look at that banner bearer holding the sword in the air, and you go, I want that to be a mini. Like, that is cool. And then you look at the that's a normal Bolter Marine, but look at those purity seals. Like, I used to never stick the purity seals on because they're a circle of wax with a teeny bit at the bottom, but they are really long and they've got nails through them, and then skulls with spikes. And I was like,
so metal.
Purity seals are actually quite cool. Let's do some really big purity seals. So yeah, that was awesome. And I think if I did I haven't done a Marine properly since, I don't think. And I would always put massive, long, flowing purity seals on them now. And
Yeah,
I
definitely.
wouldn't have done it if I hadn't done this art. So that's kind of cool.
Nice.
Nice.
So next slide.
Yeah. I've obviously got a delay on slides.
It's
Oh,
just
wait.
Sylvan F1.
See what it is. Yeah, so maybe go through these, but this is another example. I love Sylvan F because they're close to Wood Elves, and yeah, obviously I got the Loon Curse set, and you get that squig in it, and I want an excuse to paint the squig really, because I was never going to do a Gloomspite Gitz army, but I think this particular model is incredible. One of the most fun models to paint as well, that little squig. And I was just looking at that art one day, and I thought, I wonder if it's possible to make a duel. And I liked how the spear was really close to his head, and I thought that's how I can attach it and make it fly. So it was that really. So even though the composition's different, because mine's a side-on piece and the art is behind, obviously, but that's not too flattering for the squig. But the placement of the spear, I thought, oh, I can make it float with that spear attaching. So, and I didn't really use the colors so much. So again, it's not being exact, but there's some ideas in there. So my squig's obviously way pinker and stuff, but yeah, just a nice bit of art, and I love the minis, so it was fun to kind of just put them together. I think.
Yeah, big time. It's been really nice to look through some of these. I think it'd be nice to actually grab you on in a future episode, and we maybe do a bit more of an interview as if you were a guest with some of these, because I can think there's a fair few more of yours that we could do this with, isn't there?
I think we've got another one.
If you'd be up for it, it'd be nice to go through a few more, sort of, maybe on its own episode. Unless you wanted to run through a few more now, but if not,
I think we've got one more, which is the Noble Dude.
Yeah, this is a bit more precise, but this is where I used like the art to kind of learn from it. So like stuff like non-metallic metal is something that people always want to learn, right? Like, how do you do non-metallic metal? And if you want to phrase it in one sentence, it's a 2D technique, right? On a 3D model, you're painting stuff like it's 2D. But that belly armor, it helps you learn how to paint it by looking at that flat piece of armor. So you look at the gold coins and you see that the bright gold highlight is only on that top left of the 3 circles. So you can learn some cool lessons from that and just do it. And the tones in the belly, all that like blue, just that bit of white at the top. And yeah, I loved that miniature, and I loved the art. And it's a slight conversion too, so I dropped the arm because I loved how he looked on that art. Like he's got his spear in the air normally, but I saw that art and thought, that's so cool how he's got his spear by his side and just slightly turning and looking at you like he doesn't really care. So yeah, awesome. And the colors as well on the shoulder pad are really nice. That particular green is pretty cool. So yeah, that's kind of it really. But just I think that you can learn from art, you can have fun copying it, and yeah, it's just nice, isn't it, to reference?
Yeah, very, very much so. I think as we're seeing more and more people choosing to paint in this illustrative style,
that's true.
It's a very nice way to segue or to introduce yourself into fantasy artwork. Perhaps you've only ever been into miniatures painting and you've not considered the artwork more than what's in the codex. But actually, there's amazing art books, coffee table style books of these artists. And I think, sci-fi and fantasy is having a real moment at the moment, isn't it? In popular culture and all the rest of it is go out there and have a look, because you never know how it is going to influence, a project of yours. It could be as simple as a color recipe. I know certainly for me, I love all the old Slaves to Darkness Chaos stuff. And whenever I do any Chaos models, it's always thinking about Adrian Smith artwork. I never try and deliberate specifically replicate a piece of artwork. But when I look at my Slaves to Darkness models on the table or on the shelf or whatever, I want them to evoke the same feeling that I get from Adrian Smith artwork.
Yeah.
And you can begin to analyze it, right? You can start, why is it so? Why do I like this so much? How can I transfer this to a miniature to get that same feel to it? I know Roman talks a lot about atmosphere, doesn't he, in a piece?
That's what art does, isn't it? Has atmosphere, and you can learn from that. So you, like said, you want to get the same, you don't want to copy the art, but you want the same feeling. And then you get that from the palette and stuff like that, don't you?
That's it. Well, I mean, a lot of the Adrian Smith artwork is black and white because of the time he worked for G-Dub. And he's, I could waffle on about him for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
But again, so you don't have that choice of can I look at what colours he's used? That option's not there to me. So again, it's distilled down even further into how has he achieved what he's achieved, just in black and white and whatnot. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to go and dig out some art books, or use things like ArtStation and whatnot online. It's a great way, isn't it, to see what people are up to. I know we've started following a lot more 2D artists, haven't we, on social media recently. I think with the advent of digital artwork and digital sculpting, that it's becoming a lot closer again. Those two
that integration,
yeah, big time.
I think there's one more slide, isn't there, Matt?
Yes, there is.
I think, which is just going to Henry's point there of like influencing but not copying and getting the feeling. But recently put this tutorial on the Cult of Paint channel, which is how to paint Lumineth. And I just took one thing from this art, really, and that's that he's used purple for the shadows. And I thought that was really cool. And I had tried to do that on a tabletop miniature. So a lot of the miniatures we talked about have been like one-off competition pieces and all this stuff, but I definitely think it's got a place for your tabletop miniatures. And I've got to do 20 of these spearmen, but I'm still using things like just the tones and the feeling and just to get ideas. And I think that's really cool. I really wanted to talk about the different levels you can use like artwork. So is it a direct influence? Is it just a little bit? Is it for your tabletop minis? I definitely think there's a place for it. So yeah, and now I'm really chuffed to roll that army out. So that's it, I reckon.
Gonna be good. Be good. Well, that was really good, mate. Thanks very much for taking us through all of that. As I say, I suspect there's more than one more show in some of those topics we've talked about, and I'd love to maybe get some artists on and talk about not just concept artists, but get some sculptors on to talk about the influence and see. I suspect there's a lot more we could learn from that than first meets the eye. So the final section of each show we do, guys, is going to be taking a look at what the live audience is chatting about. So anybody that's a member of our Cult of Paint Patreon gets to watch the stream live. So they're having a good old natter. And I think earlier we asked them if they could have any one piece of GW artwork, what would they be having? Have you guys made your decisions yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to get it.
All right, go on then. Rich, you can start us off. What you're having?
So my very first codex I ever bought, 13th Crusade, the Abaddon artwork where he's crushing the world, crushing Cadia in his power fist.
Nice.
Is that a codex?
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's a codex supplement, so it's 13th Crusade, but it had like the Wolfen and the Storm Guardians and a bunch of stuff in it. But it was the first rule book I ever bought then.
Very nice. We've
That's
got Stefan is all in on the Paul Bonner stuff. He wants that Paul Bonner Empire Captain one, which I think was if I'm right, the one he's on about was the front cover of the very final army book, the Empire got. Warhammer Fantasy Battle, with that big, Paul Bonner nose, isn't it, on the guys, this ruddy sort of captain face. Azrael, the Dark Angel artwork from second edition. That's from Alan. That was probably my pick. So you can have that one. You can have that one.
Not
What's
Asmodee?
Mike, well, I've got the T-shirt of that already, mate. But Mike has gone for the original Horus versus the Emperor.
Oh, good shout.
Which again
Good
has
shout,
been done
that.
3 times now, if I'm right. One by Adrian, both by Adrian Smith, I think, weren't they? The first one was Adrian, then he did a second one, which is probably the one the majority of people know of, which has got the real beautiful full colour, all the rest of it. And then relatively recently, Neil Roberts did the chap who did Skinny Elbows, I think is his social media name. He did he does the front covers for a lot of the Black Library novels, certainly for Heresy, and he did an updated version of that one as well. Have you ever seen that brilliant Mike McVeigh diorama based off that?
Yeah,
that's off the black and white one. Yeah, that he's on about.
And that's I'm pretty sure Adrian Smith did the original black and white one, like back.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, it's that's awesome. So what have you gone for, Andy? Where is he? There? Has he gone?
He's got the High Elves book up.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I wasn't looking at him.
Yeah, the that High Elves guy on a horse.
That's very cool.
What edition's that?
I'm gonna get the date, not the edition.
Late 90s, early noughties.
94.
A bit later than that, wouldn't it?
Book cover Jeff Taylor.
There you go.
97.
There we are.
97 Jeff Taylor. Yep.
Lovely stuff.
Yep. Awesome.
Got a few others in here. Adrian Smith's popping up a good few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's huge. What about you, Matt? What are you having?
Well, I said Mephiston,
money, no object.
Now I've been thinking about it. I think I'm going to have to. There's 2 basically, and they're both in the 3rd Ed Codex.
Gotta pick one.
It's either the Black Templars, the cover.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or there's a black and white.
Carl Kapinski? No, Paul Dayton.
That's John Blanche, isn't it?
Yeah,
oh, you mean
Black
3rd Ed? Sorry.
Yeah, 3rd Ed.
Yeah.
They're all sort of the Black Templars lined out and stuff like that. But there's a black and white drawing in there of a Space Marine like bust, and it doesn't have a name on it. I don't know who it's by, but it's stuck in my head from a kid, from like being like 8-year-old me walking into a Games Workshop in the 90s and getting that. And if I could find the artist who did it, it's got to be out there somewhere. But I'll go.
Be your next book, mate.
Yeah, I'll go with the black and white drawing.
Nice.
Love it. Right, so want to keep the show on time, and we've still got quite a few bits I'd like to go through. We started out this idea of a hashtag paint cultist, and the idea with that was we really wanted to look at the work that the community is producing, and by that community I mean the community we're directly involved with, so the guys that are coming on our classes, the girls that are watching the show, all that sort of thing. So if you'd like us to take a look at your work, use the hashtag paint cultist at the end of it. I'd really recommend, guys, if you want to go and see some fantastic work and maybe some new people to follow on Instagram, check out this hashtag, because there's far more pictures now using this tag than we're able to go through each show. So what we've decided to do is start picking a handful each at the end of the show, not telling the other ones what we've gone for, and sort of showing them off and seeing what their reactions are. So Matt, can you fire up the first one, bud? Love it.
Cool.
Now,
Oh wow.
This is also one of my favourite models, and he's going to be a treat model for when I finished a few troops for the army. This is the relatively new Ogroid Myrmidon model, isn't it, from GW? But I think this is a great example of what we were talking about earlier of the miniature looking more like a piece of artwork rather than trying to look super realistic.
That Blanche palette, red and yellow.
Yeah, it's just cool. I think it just really suits the model. I love the banner. It's very metal. You know, it's got that vibe, and I like it a lot.
I never would have done that model yellow, right?
Yeah,
never would have
exactly.
done it yellow.
Yeah,
and it looks so good. And the base is super.
Base is great.
What a great palette.
Yeah, big fan. So nice one, Axel. Loving that. What we got on next, Matt? So this is great. Jared, a friend of ours from Australia, has come on a pretty long painting journey. He's one of these. He's a proper student. This guy. He does his homework, does his training, as it were, and then applies it. And I picked this model partly because I don't think Jared would have painted this 6 months ago or 12 months ago or whatever. But also because this model's gone from I really wasn't that fussed when this model first came out by it to now I really like this model. And I'm really enjoying seeing different people's interpretations. And I feel like this is an interpretation of it I haven't seen so far. And again, I think a lot of that comes down to just choosing this really cool copper type body for him. So yeah, really cool. I think I'm going to have to go and get another one and turn it into a Demon Prince or something.
I've got to paint this model as well.
It's just cool, isn't it?
It's amazing.
One behind me, one side.
Yeah, done a good job. Yeah, done a wicked job on this one, Jared. So yeah, really, really dig that. What's up next, Matt? Nice.
Cool.
So this one I picked out because I think I'm always going to be someone who gets maybe a little bit wanky about how they like to paint stuff, but it's what I spoke about earlier, that idea of it evoking a similar emotional response to pieces of artwork and stuff, right? Like, I don't give a shit whether something's painted to the absolute nth degree, show winning, all the rest of it, or it's a really much more basic. If it's really basic, much more basic than this, if it's got the right tone to it, I really enjoy it. And I think this model, just as soon as I saw it, it took me right back to when I was working abroad and didn't have computers or anything, but I had a bunch of Black Library books and I just love reading them and sort of just getting lost in reading those Black Library books. And this just had a very similar sort of reaction for me when I looked at it.
The yellow, man.
It's just cool, right? And then there's real nice touches like the plasma or volkite or plasma, whatever it is, the glow on the pistol weapon. I like the idea of doing that bit of OSL on the legs. It's not normally something I'm a huge fan of, but
subtle enough though.
It just works, man. I just really like it.
It's very grimdark. It's really cool.
It is grimdark, and I think at heart that's where my love is of the Warhammer universes anyway. And just to bang on about Adrian Smith a tiny bit more, go and check out his Chronicles of Hate graphic novels, and if you can find it, the game, because it's exactly that same feel, that really oppressive, dark, moody space fantasy, or fantasy, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I really dig that. Matt, what's up next, bud?
Cool.
Right.
That's awesome.
This is just cool, right? It's unsurprisingly, a lot of the models that people have tagged are Games Workshop, and again, probably unsurprisingly within that, quite a lot of Space Marines. So when you get a model that's absolutely nothing like any of those, you immediately are going to look at it. But this is just, I don't know, it's just got a very, very cool feel, I think, this model. You remember how when we were chatting to Dave Colwell in the interview about him painting some box art for Deogard, we said how it was really easy with Dave's models to imagine what was going on in the background.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I feel like with this. Like, this is if you were starting a D&D adventure, right, and it started with you walk into a tavern, there's a very good chance this dude's in there. And
the lighting's amazing on
it's really good, isn't it?
The warm to cool is just really subtle and convincing, isn't it? So when we're talking, when someone was asking about what do you call that type of lighting, it's that same thing as in that Paul Bonner thing. It's that lovely, soft, natural, little like warm lighting, and you can just see on this picture that blue, can't you, on the side? And he's in the pub and there's a candle above him or something. It's just really spot on. Sculpt by Maxime Penot, that one.
Lovely. Yeah, really nice. And have we got one more, Matt, or is that the lot?
Nope.
We do. And just to change it up again, as I said, if you want to check out this hashtag, guys, there's a real breadth of work starting to appear on there that people are tagging. Generally, I think we're only going to pick things that are finished as well. By all means, tag away on your work in progresses and whatnot. But I think we'll probably only shout about pieces that actually get finished. Going back to that finished is better than perfect idea as well, we discussed in episode 1. I think that's something I want to push a bit more. So this is my regular gaming opponent, or until the plague hit, Tom Stallard. He's one of the reasons I wanted to pick these out was partly selfish, but it's Tom's, again, another one of these people that has they decided they wanted to improve their painting, and they've gone about using everything available to them. So they've got all the great free tutorials, but they've also come on classes, they're on Patrons, they're on this, but then they're also practicing it,
doing it
exactly. And again, if you compare this to models Tom painted 2 years ago, there's a huge improvement, and it doesn't just happen overnight. It's finding the stuff, it's understanding it, it's practicing it, it's fucking it up, it's asking for help, it's improving, and on and on and on. The other reason is I love Titans, or Titanicus, so I wanted to pick this. But he said he'd used I did quite a while now ago on Patreon, I did a big PDF series on how I painted my Titanicus. He's used the basing that Andy did on the White Scars video on YouTube a few months ago. He's just combined all sorts of different tutorials, and I think this for me is the perfect, when we talk about army painting, this is what we mean. It's models that are going to look awesome on the table, but also are really rewarding to not just look at in the horrible super zoomed in on the computer or on your phone type thing, but also just in your hand to pick up and have a look at them. There's so many points of interest, but the models don't become too busy. There's nice techniques, but certainly when I look at these models, I don't look at a bunch of techniques. I'm just looking at the model and enjoying it, if that makes sense. And the red is fairly outrageous.
Right, for scale as well.
Yeah, it is, man. And that was a big focus of that tutorial, the weathering within scale sort of thing. So yeah, that's just a little snapshot, as I say, of the hundreds of things that are on the Paint Cultist hashtag now, guys. So if you would like us to feature your work and take a look at it, and we do look at all of it, make sure to tag us in it on Instagram. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on all sorts of places. Very easy to get hold of us, all right? It's not going to be difficult. And please do reach out to us if you've got questions about stuff, if you've got things you'd like to see in future episodes. Pop them in the comments when this goes out on YouTube. Let us know what you think. We're thoroughly enjoying doing this show. Can't wait for the next 2 weeks. Figure out what new things we're going to see, what we're going to talk about for the next show. So, Andy, thanks very much, mate, for taking us through that main segment.
Welcome.
A lot of fun with that, bud. Matt, Rich, thanks for joining us. Always good fun. We need to get one of you two on your soapbox soon, I think. Get you ranting about something. It's always good fun to listen to. Shuts me up as well. So we'll crack on with that. And thanks very much, guys, that joined us, the Patreon live chat. Really lovely to see you all in there. It's growing every week at the moment to see you guys watching live and chatting along. Keeps us on our toes and all the rest of it. So thanks for watching. As I say, if you enjoy it, hit the like button, pop in the comments what you'd like to see, and we'll see you next time.
Ciao.
Bye.
See ya.